Ride a cockle to Banbury Cross to see a fine lady upon a white horse, with rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. She shall have music wherever she goes. A goddess transcendent emerging from earth, encouraging harmony on the world's girth. Always she's there, but seldom is seen, a very fine lady, a very fine queen. Serenely she rides over meadow and vale, ensuring well-being to all on her trail. Clad in a gown of the finest green moss, adoringly greeted at Banbury Cross.
Oh, we're back. Hey, look, our tent's gone, and all the trees look different. And I wonder why the church bells are ringing. Come on, let's go and find out. Hey, look at that car. I haven't seen one like that before, have you? Oh, some people coming up here, look.
Good morning to you all and welcome. And welcome to those of you who are resident here in North Aston. Welcome to those of you who are from further afield. Welcome to you. We're gathered here to remember those people and memories from the early 1940s. And in our gathering here, we are gathered in this place, which is dedicated to God. And the God who is, and was, and is to come, our help and our hope. And it is with that in mind we sing our first hymn. It's number 5.
The vicar seems to be talking as though 1940 was a long time ago. Hey, I don't think anyone has seen us yet. I reckon we're still invisible, Andrew. You did change the date when we came back from Colchester Castle, didn't you?
Yes, of course. I forgot to alter the date when we left Colchester.
Well, that must mean that we're still in 2007, and we're in North Aston a long time in the future. I wonder why this service is being held.
The person behind our meeting this morning has very clearly been Peter, so it's quite appropriate, Peter, to hand over to you at this point.
Good morning, everyone. The last time I was allowed to make a vocal contribution in St Mary's was when I was a choir boy here during 1944, but my voice has deepened a little since. On a more serious note, at this moment in time, exactly 63 years ago, a unit of American servicemen who had been billeted here in the grounds of North Aston Hall were sacrificing their lives on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. As a 9-year-old evacuee staying at the hall, I had briefly met them a few days before when we made friendly exchanges. They always responded generously to the familiar call of "Got any gum, chum?" It was not until recent years that I learned that they'd all lost their lives on that day. They belonged to the 55th Medical Battalion and in a sense were non-combatants who were only interested in preserving life. There were, of course, countless others who sacrificed their lives on our behalf at that time. From the British Army were Captain John Hitchens and Captain Taylor, who are commemorated here in the church, as are other service members of the local community. The mother of Captain Hitchens, Mrs. Hermione Hitchens, who once owned the hall, was a person of great inspiration and served herself in the First World War as a voluntary nurse, and she gained the Nursing Red Cross. Her inspiration prompted me to write a children's story about my experiences as an evacuee here at North Aston during 1944, which is by way of my humble tribute to her and to the servicemen we are honouring here today. At one time, today's service was just a figment of my imagination and is portrayed fictitiously in my story. However, thanks to the help given to me by Reverend Stephen McCaw and Clive Busby, it has actually become reality today. So in a sense, as members of the congregation, you're all being encapsulated in my book, a page of which is being written today. Unfortunately, it does not have the literary excellence of another author by the name of J.R.R. Tolkien, who officiated with Mrs. Hitchens when she opened the local Deddington Library in 1956. After that ceremony, she invited Professor Tolkien back to lunch at North Aston Hall, and we are able to offer you all light refreshments in the gardens today after this service, which I hope you'll all come to. In conclusion, whilst honouring those who gave so much all those years ago for us to now enjoy world peace, relatively speaking, we must not forget present-day servicemen and women in our prayers for their sacrifices which are continuing to be made. Even today, at 12 noon, a service is taking place in another St Mary's Church in the quiet village of Alderby in Norfolk. It is the funeral with full military honours of Lance Corporal George Davey. He's the 23-year-old Royal Anglian soldier who died in Afghanistan following a tragic firearms incident. He leaves a widow and 2 young daughters. The toll of fatalities among British forces personnel in Afghanistan since the start of operations in November 2001 is now 57. My children's story is a boyhood dream that in future war would be fought out on playing fields and not battlefields. And to a large extent, this has happened in my lifetime due to the sacrifices made by others. I continue to dream of a complete world harmony. Thank you.
Anne Cooper contacted me after having seen details about this service in the press, and she's unfortunately unable to be here, having a prior engagement to the north of England, but she wrote a letter which, if I may, I will read out. I write in connection with the brief report that appeared in the Wednesday edition of the Oxford Mail referring to the D-Day service at North Aston on the 6th of June. My parents formed a very close friendship with one of the young men who lived under canvas just along the Middle Aston Road, approximately where Nicholson's nurseries are now established. My mother had 5 brothers on active service, one being a POW captured at Dunkirk at just 19 years of age. The hopes of a landing in Europe raised expectations that war would end, and that POWs, together with all our active servicemen, would come home. As a direct consequence, and reflecting our personal circumstances, a young American became a regular visitor to our house and enjoyed the hospitality that the family were able to give. I am unable to recall his name, but clearly remember that unlike the majority of the soldiers, he did not smoke or drink. His father was, I believe, a Methodist minister. My family lived in the station house at Somerton. My father was the station master. The house was opposite to the village pub, well used by the Yanks while the beer supply lasted. Our friend had a wind-up, portable gramophone and records which he played. He found living under canvas difficult, and in particular worried about his personal laundry, and as a consequence my mother did this for him. My lasting memory is of a jeep arriving quite late one evening, the young man rushing to the door and requesting his laundry. Mum, being mum, said that she had not had sufficient time to air the clothes. But he put his arms around her and said, "Where we are going, that will not matter." We both got a kiss, and I was requested to keep safe his gramophone and records, with an assurance that he would return to visit and collect them. As news came through, we realized that the American landings had suffered heavy casualties, but sincerely believed that our friend would return, For my part, I kept the records and the gramophone for years. My children played the records, and in memory of the brave men who camped at North Aston, I sometimes played the Army issue records as a nostalgic reminder of a lovely young man who came into our lives for such a very short time. Since returning to Oxfordshire, I have tried to find information about this small band of men without success. A visit to the Overlord Museum and research there was not successful. Details of other sites used prior to D-Day were identified, but nothing could be found relating to North Aston. Time moves on, and the records that I faithfully kept for some 50 years have been deposited at the Overlord Museum. But memories of those young, handsome men will always remain. Without the sacrifices that were made by them, who were enjoying the flower of their youth, where would we be today? Freedom is a very precious thing, and rightly we should always remember and honour the memory of those who gave all they had, their life. Yours sincerely, Anne Cooper, née Anne Giles. Brackets, I was just 9 years old at the time.
I've called this Collective Reminiscences. I don't know how long you've got, but let me know when you're tired. As Peter Barton has explained, the village did take in a number of evacuees during the war. Some individual children stayed in family homes, and a larger contingent were billeted at the manor and the hall. As primary school children, we were not very worldly, and our schooling was kept separate from the evacuees, who came with their own teachers, as I remember it, and were taught in an adjacent room or separate buildings in the village. The primary school in North Aston closed in about 1950, the last teacher being Mrs. L. Knowles Phillips. North Aston's defence against an enemy attack consisted of two large tree trunks. One end of the tree trunk was pivoted on an iron post, and the other end had a very large steel cartwheel fixed in a manner that allowed the trunk to be wheeled across the road to create a roadblock. These were sited at the top of the manor hill and at the top of the green. How they thought this was going to stop a German tank coming through the village, I don't know, but that was the idea. We had our own ARP and Home Guard, and one night when a German plane offloaded excess bombs over North Aston on its return from Coventry, one or two dropped in the fields to the north of the village and one in the vicarage driveway. None of the bombs exploded, and the vicar, who was teaching at that time, got up and went to work the next morning, driving over the crater without even knowing it was there. North Aston Home Guard had its headquarters in one of Captain Taylor's horse-drawn caravans, sited under the chestnut tree near the park gate. The chestnut tree isn't there anymore, but it wasn't a couple of years ago, the particular one. The closest they ever got to armed combat was when, on a local exercise, they came across the Dunstew Home Guard on a similar exercise. The story has it that this was the only time they fired a shot in anger during the whole of the war. But the confrontation was amicably resolved, apparently, afterwards in the White Horse at Dunstew.
Hearing, I invite you to stand. We remember in this act of remembrance those from the local community of North Aston who gave their lives in the Second World War. Robert Taylor, Lionel Hitchens, John Hitchens, Claude Croxford, and Ronald Mount. And we also remember those men from North America who were stationed here as part of the 55th Medical Battalion. Those from the 494 Collection Company, 495 Collection Company, 650 Clearing Company, and 3514 Ordnance Medium Auto Maintenance. Let us remember before God and commend to his shorekeeping those whom we remember this day with thanksgiving and who have died for their country in war. Ever-living God, we remember those who you have gathered from the storm of war into the peace of your presence. May that same peace calm our fears, bring justice to all peoples, and establish harmony among the nations. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. May the Lord, who is both master of life and death, bless us. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace. Amen.
The service today came about because I've written a children's story about the time I was here in 1944, and I very briefly met American soldiers before they went to the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. The idea came in the book that I should write a page where the children actually see this service happening in 2007. Having written the book, it occurred to me that I could make it become reality, and through the help of the church, it's actually become reality today, which is absolutely wonderful.
It was an extraordinary time, and the village was completely different in those days, as Ted Short said, and that was another very fascinating thing, was to hear his recollections of that time too. It was a time of our lives that we will always remember, and the service today was an extraordinarily good commemoration of that time. And I'm told that most of the people who were in the park, these are the Americans who were in the park, were killed at Omaha Bridge. But in fact that wasn't so, because there was somebody who came not very long ago. When I say not very long ago, it was about 25 years ago, and was heard to say in a loud voice, "Very good news, Mrs. Hitchens is still alive." And he went and hugged her. And she was extremely touched, and he was a survivor of those who had been in the park in the 1944.
It was my dad who took us up to London from Essex, put us on a train and said, go to Banbury, go to the tea shop that we used to go to before the war, and ask if they do bed and breakfast. But of course they didn't, but the people there, so walked round the corner, there's a village hall, and we went there, and there must have been WVS people there, and they looked after us that evening. And in the morning, Mrs. Hitchens rang up to say she'd like a family of evacuees. They put us on a bus, and we came here, and we couldn't believe it. It was such a beautiful home, and she welcomed us with open arms, and did until the day we left. And we went back after the war several times. She'd always write and say, do come and see us, bring your children, bring your family. And when my dad retired, she said, if you ever want to come and live here, I'll have a bungalow built in the grounds for you.
It's been a lovely day today. It's been the culmination of Peter's efforts over the last 10 years. The thought of actually having a church service, which was portrayed in the book, and then to actually bring this to life, it's just been a very nice day, and Peter, I'm sure, is very happy with the way it's gone.
Oh, it's been fantastic.
Been a lovely day. Yes, the service was just right.
Yes.
The grounds, the setting is just wonderful, isn't it?
Having read the book, this has brought it to life.
It's been a wonderful day to meet people that I knew over 60 years ago.
Hello, Peter. You haven't seen me for a long time. I'm Irish. This is Mrs. Cox, my mum. Do you remember?
I didn't believe that I would ever meet them again, and so that's been wonderful today. And to have access to the hall grounds in this way has really put the ice on the cake.
I think they've all gone now. But gosh, wasn't that strange seeing all those people? I can't believe that we could see ourselves like that, can you? I looked really old, didn't I? And you did too, Andrew. Fancy seeing you and your mum there like that as well, Iris. And I must have written some sort of book. I don't know how I managed that because I'm no good at compositions. Oh, look out, there's someone coming. Stop singing, Tanya.
To see a fine lady upon a white horse, with rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. She'll have music wherever she goes.
Oh dear, that lady has fainted. She must have heard Tanya singing, and she saw the rocking horse moving and probably thought it was a ghost. Look, there's a real ghost. Oh, it's your mother, Andrew.
Hello, children. Yes, I am a ghost, but there's no need to be afraid. I still enjoy living here at the hall, but can you go and find Maria's husband, Francisco, and tell him that she has fainted?
Oh, I reckon old Scam must have jumped on us and pulled our arms apart. He's brought us back to 1944, I think. Look, our tent's back up there again. Right, where should we go next? It's your turn to choose, Tanya. Where would you like to go?
To Banbury Cross, to see a fine lady upon a white horse.
Yes, all right, Tanya, we can go there. But, hey, that gives me an idea. Because we already know when the war ends, don't we? So why don't we go on May the 8th, 1945? Because then they might be celebrating the end of the war with a carnival or something, mightn't they? And then we might be able to join in with it. That would be good, wouldn't it? Come on, let's try that. We were right! They're celebrating the end of the war! Let's join in!
Children, my name is Auntie Susan. Come along, don't be shy. We've got lots of lovely food and drinks for you at our street party. Just sit yourselves down. Now, who'd like a party hat? Would anyone like another jam tart? What was that, dear? You've had 5 already? Oh, well, I suppose it won't hurt if you have another one. That's a funny song about a woodpecker, isn't it?
Oh,
you're spelling the rain everywhere. You are being funny.
He takes a few holes in a tree to see if a redwood's really red. And it's nothing to him on the tiniest wind to peck a few holes in your head. Oh, 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 that's the woodpecker tune. Oh, 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 makes the other woodpeckers swoon. So it doesn't make sense to the delight what the woodpeckers long. Oh, 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 that's the woody woodpecker song.
Okay, Chris, let's get this dance going. Hooray! There we go.
Oh, hello there. I bet you didn't know I couldn't Morris dance, did you? Well, I only went wrong a little bit, didn't I? I didn't do too bad. Anyway, everyone's so happy the war's over, and they're really enjoying the VE Day celebrations here in Banbury and everywhere in the world as well. Well, this here film is almost over, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I do like an happy ending, don't you? Cheerio from Slippy.
Oh, it's Mother! 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 Ouch! What was that?
And we're being thrown these stones.
Oh, I've got an awful tummy ache.
I didn't feel them.
I wish I hadn't eaten those mushrooms. I've had a really strange dream that started with us finding a Roman goddess mosaic, which we could fly on. And we caught some spies who were trying to get another flying machine called a Pyramidion, which we found. And the king rewarded us at Buckingham Palace because we helped to win the war.
But the war hasn't ended yet.
No, but I know it will be next year, because it was in my dream.
Well, dreams are not always true, but I hope you're right anyway. Look over here, it's a mosaic.
Hey, yes! That looks exactly like the horse on the flying mosaic in my dream. Oh, and your mother is a goddess who rides on a white horse to Banbury Cross every year, Andrew.
It's true.